So I did brush my hair today, but the makeup was still a no-go. Hey, what is up guys? Welcome to my channel. I've been thinking about and kind of working on this video for a while now. I just wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to go about it, what I wanted to talk about, but I just kind of felt like sitting down and talking about it today. So we are going to be talking about some injuries. The original kind of inspiration for this video was a student of mine had requested I do a video on injury prevention. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but primarily what I'm going to focus on today is a few injuries that I have had and what I did to rehab from them and heal them. So as far as injury prevention goes, the reason I didn't want to make this video just totally about injury prevention is because that is such a broad topic that this video would be like 3 hours long if I just talked on injury prevention. Basically for injury prevention, from my perspective, it's really about being in class and focusing on your technique and like really drilling the basics before you move up to more advanced things, so that you really just have a really strong foundation. On top of that, warming up properly, making sure that you are, completely ready to dance or do whatever it is that, whatever movement you're gonna do. I think that warm-ups are like highly underrated, and people will like stretch or like whatever, but like you have to really warm up your body in order to be ready to dance. Like as far as ballet goes, like all those warm-ups were tailored specifically to warm up your body in a specific order, because if you're doing them correctly, like it really does warm up your body. So warm up is super important for injury prevention as well. And then the last thing is just kind of cross training, specifically strengthening the muscles around your joints, right? Because that's a lot of times, aside from like pulled muscles or things like that, a lot of injuries are like ankle, knee, hip, like those kinds of things, right? So it's really important to be strengthening the muscles around your joints. So again, if I were to like talk on this, and like it would take all day. So if you want a video specifically for like exercises to strengthen around a specific joint, whatever, a specific muscle group, whatever it may be, let me know in the comments and I can definitely make videos on that in the future. But it's just such a broad topic, like you gotta get a little more specific with me. So that's definitely something I can work on, like a little series in the future if people are interested in that, but just let me know, okay? So on to the main portion of this video. I'm just going to talk about 3 injuries that I have had throughout my dance life, how I got them, what I did to take care of them, etc. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about was about 10 years ago now, which is crazy. Like I do not feel like I'm old enough to have anything have happened 10 years ago, but it was about 10 years ago. I believe I was 12, and it was an injury to my knee. So it was my right knee. It actually had nothing to do with dance. I was not dancing when I got the injury. Essentially what happened was I was at Skywalk, which is a like trampoline arena, if you don't know. Anybody who's danced with me even for like a short period of time knows that like I have like absurdly hyperextended knees. So basically what happened was I was at Skywalk, and I landed on a trampoline somehow and kind of hyperextended my knee backwards. That was the first and only time I have ever gone to a trampoline arena. At that point my mom basically banned them, and I have not felt compelled to go back myself as an adult either. What ended up happening is that I basically strained my patella tendon. So I'm not really gonna get like too scientific with you guys, but if you don't know, a tendon connects a bone to a muscle. So the patella tendon goes from your quad muscle, so up by your thigh, underneath your patella, which is your kneecap, and then connects to your shin bone. So basically the part that was really painful for me was kind of like at the top of my shin, right under my kneecap. If there's one thing I can like take away from my injuries, it's just like go to the doctor right away. Because let me tell you, when you go to the doctor for a vast majority of injuries, they're just gonna tell you to do like the RICE treatment, which is just stands for rest, ice, compression, and elevation. So if you wait like a couple weeks to go and you've like already been doing that, they're gonna be like, oh, we'll just do this, and then you're gonna have to like schedule another appointment. It just like kind of like goes from there. Like you're not gonna get answers on your first appointment. So if it like lasts more than 24 hours, just go to the doctor right away. Like it's not worth like drawing it out longer than you have to. So just go to the doctor right away, because they're gonna tell you, they're more than likely gonna tell you rest, ice, compression, elevation. Do that for a week, then you're gonna have to get another appointment and go from there, x-rays, whatever you have to do. But anyways, so I did end up going to the doctor. They basically told me that rest, ice, compression, elevation. The other thing that they're gonna tell you probably is don't do anything that hurts. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, the first visit you get at a doctor's appointment, they're not gonna really like tell you like anything that like innovative. Like it's just gonna be like, ice it, don't do anything that hurts, take ibuprofen basically. So the sooner you can get that like first visit out of the way, the better, because then the quicker the whole process is gonna be, whether you need to get x-rays, PT, whatever you need to do. So please just go to the doctor right away. It's not worth like drawing it out longer than it has to. Anyways, back to my whole thing. Basically I just had to kind of like take it easy, which was like a drag. I was on a competition team at the time. You know, I was 12, I wanted to like do things, and you know, I couldn't really. So basically I iced it, took ibuprofen, and I used this big fancy knee brace essentially that just gave like a little more support around. So I'll try and put a picture like right there if I can, so that you can see what that brace looks like. But that's what I ended up doing. I think I would say like I ended up like having that injury for, it was probably a couple months by the time it really ended up like fully healing. On that note, just when you have an injury, just like take care of yourself. Like I know it's so easy like as an athlete to just want to like push through and be like, I don't want to miss out on things, I don't want to like whatever, but just take care of yourself, like, because ultimately like you have to live in your body for the rest of your life, and like whatever it is that you don't want to miss out on is just like a blip. So just take care of your body. Okay, so the second one that I want to talk about is a little more recent. It was like a couple years ago. Honestly, it's kind of a long story, but eventually what happened was that my sciatic on my right side spasmed. So it happened in December, but it kind of like all like started like spiraling to that point actually like March, so like 9 months before it actually happened. So at the time I was dancing with a sort of professional modern company, and we were doing this performance in an airplane hangar. So if you don't know what an airplane hangar is, it's basically like a garage for an airplane, and essentially what it is just a gigantic warehouse with cement floors and no heat or anything like that. So it happened to be a kind of chilly, rainy day when we were performing, and so it was like so freaking cold inside this building, and it had cement floors, which was like not helping the situation. So it was extremely difficult to like get warm, let alone stay warm. So just like that night, like my hip just felt like it totally like seized up, and like just totally like it felt so tight. Like I'm not really sure like exactly what happened, but like just being in that cold building, like honestly I don't know what happened, but at the time it kind of felt more like in the front of my hip, like my hip flexor. But at that point, this was kind of like the last performance of our season, or like the last weekend. So I just had like a couple more performances, and after that weekend I wasn't really dancing that much. I just was teaching at the time. Like, I don't know if I would say like it was super painful, but it just was like really bugging me. Anyways, it just kind of like continued to be tight for like a long time, and like I wasn't really dancing that much, so I kind of didn't really do anything about it, which is like 0-10, do not recommend. Like, if you are in pain or something's bugging you, just go to the doctor and like figure out what's happening. It just kind of like, you know, whatever, was bugging me for a while. The following August I did end up going back to school and dancing. So I was taking some classes. I think I was taking like a modern class, and then I was taking a composition class, which is like choreography. So I was dancing a little bit more. Like, it felt like it was actually like loosening up, but like I just was like kind of dancing more and more. Like, I was demonstrating more when I was teaching, and like just overall I was like dancing a lot more. And then again, it didn't really happen like when I was dancing. I was actually sitting on the floor, and I like reached behind me. I kind of like twisted like this, and all of a sudden there was just like this shooting pain in like my lower back, like shooting all the way down, like almost all the way down my leg, like all the way like to the back of my knee. And again, this was in December, so it was around finals time for school, and for dance classes, finals generally entail dancing, funnily enough, right? So I was supposed to dance. I did end up dancing for my modern final because it was like a solo, like everyone had to do a solo, so like obviously like I had to, there was no way around it. For the composition, I ended up not being able to be in anyone else's pieces for the composition final. Obviously didn't affect my grade because like it was based on like my choreography, not on my dancing. But yeah, I ended up not being able to dance at all for my composition final because I was in so much pain. Like, I could barely walk, like sitting in the car was painful, like it was just like a mess. Basically what I did for that one was I ended up going to the chiropractor, and this was like the first time in my life I've ever gone to the chiropractor, which, like, being someone who's been like active like almost my entire life, like it's kind of weird to think that like that's the first time. Like, I think I was 19 at the time, and like that's the first time like I had ever gone to a chiropractor. But let me just tell you, it is life-changing. So if you don't go to the chiropractor, go to the chiropractor, because it's, yes, 10/10 would recommend. So I went to the chiropractor. He did, you know, all his little back cracky things on me, and he also used this thing called a TENS machine, which is basically like uses like electric like impulses to dull your pain receptors, as well as like loosen up the muscles. So what he ended up telling me is that all the muscles in my hip like gripped around my sciatic, and that's what made it spasm. So also, if you don't know, your sciatic is a nerve that like is in your low back and like goes all the way down the back of your leg. So that's what ended up happening. I did a lot of chiropractic for that. I was going like once a week for quite like maybe 6 weeks, and then I was going every other week, every 3 weeks. I tried to go go down to only once a month, but I ended up going back to 3 weeks. So that was all like, at this point, like when I was down to only 3 weeks, that was like about a year ago. But the problem was that I wasn't really dancing too much at the time, because I ended up taking that spring semester off. So I had done all this chiropractic, but I wasn't doing like any strength training to like keep the strength in my hip and everything. So everything kind of got loosened up and got really weak. So like it got to the point where like I would like be putting my pants on and like shift all my weight onto my right side, and it would just like give out because like it just could not like bear my weight. So my left side like was way stronger than my right side. Honestly, it still is. But yeah, then I had to start doing like some cross training and like Pilates and like that kind of stuff to like re-strengthen it. It still is like way weaker than my left side, but it's gotten a lot better. then moving like over 6 months after it happened, I went back to school full-time in San Francisco as a dance major, so obviously I was dancing. Just going back to dance and like moving again and like making it do its job, like it's gotten way stronger. So I wouldn't really say that that is like fully like healed yet, but it is definitely much better, much stronger. I rarely feel like sciatic pain. It's getting stronger like all the time, so I don't know that I would say that's like fully rehabbed and everything, but that injury is coming to the end of its life. Finally, the last one that I'm going to talk about is the most recent, well, kind of most recent. Again, it's kind of one that was like simmering over time, and that is tendonitis in my Achilles on the right side. If you have danced for like any period of time, especially if you like danced after high school, whether that's like professionally or just in college or whatever, you will more than likely at some point deal with Achilles pain and like Achilles tendonitis, even if that's just like mild or like more severe. I think most people know what your Achilles is, but if you don't, then it's just the tendon at the back of your ankle, so it just connects to your calf muscle to your heel. Honestly, like I have no idea like how this happened. Like I just, over time, like teaching and everything, like it just kind of like would bug me every once in a while, but like I wasn't really dancing like heavily enough that it was like an issue, so I never went to the doctor for it. Again, 0-10, do not recommend, just go to the doctor. So when I went back to school in August full-time, I was dancing so much more. Like I was dancing like 3 to 5 hours Monday through Thursday, and then like 2 hours on Friday, so kind of a lot to just go like 0 to 60 like in under a minute. Again, like I honestly don't know exactly like how this came about, but like the more I was dancing, like the worse it was getting basically. So I was in a lot of pain. Like I would say like the kind of peak honestly was maybe like February, and it just like I was in so much pain. Like I was like in tears in class because I was in so much pain, and I was like doing everything like I was supposed to do. Like I was doing like stretches to stretch out my calf. I was icing it every single day, like sometimes twice a day. Like I was icing it all the time, and I was taking ibuprofen. I was taking these like supplements for my joints. Like I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to be doing, and it just was like not really getting better. Like icing it and like that stuff like would kind of like relieve the pain like temporarily, but ultimately it was not like getting better long term. So fast forward to now, you know, we're all in the middle of a pandemic. Obviously I'm not taking class. I do take class online like once or twice a week, but ultimately I'm not like dancing anywhere to the extent to what I was. But over the past couple months I have found something that's been working for me. It still is not like 100%. Like I don't know what it would be like if I went back to like the studio today and like was dancing a ton again, but I've been using the CBD menthol lotion. This is what it looks like. I just rub it like all over like the back of my ankle and like sometimes even up my calf every day. Sometimes if I like dance and it's like a little more painful, then I'll like do it twice a day. I also use like a little peanut roller, and I just put like the part that dips down like over my Achilles and I roll it up and down, so it's like massaging over the sides of my Achilles, and like up my calf. And those two things seem to have been helping a lot. I stopped icing it because I was feeling like that was just making my calf and like all the muscles around it really tight and honestly making it worse. So I stopped icing it. But those are the two things that I think have like really been helping me. So you know, if you have any injury that's just like will not like budge, I definitely recommend the CBD lotion. So that is it for today. Of course, like over my dance, like I don't want to say career because it's not really been a career, but like, you know, the span of my dance life, I've had other minor injuries, but overall like I haven't had like a huge amount of injuries, and I truly believe that it's because like I was given a really solid foundation and technique and like really taught how to do things properly so that you're not like wearing and tearing on your body. So again, like in terms of like prevention, I really big time think that basics, making sure that you're really like using your technique properly, warming up, and then cross training to really strengthen those muscles. Those are kind of like the keys of injury prevention. If you want more videos on injuries, injury prevention, whatever it may be, let me know. Give me specifics down in the comments. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys sometime.
If you made it all the way to the end of the video, comment down below pineapple.